Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a mass make of some journaling cards, sort of. I am using this beautiful vintage ledger stamp from Creative Worship Stamps. This is from their new June release. I will put my affiliate link down in the description if you are interested. I love this stamp. I love all things ledger anyway, but this is a great size. It's a great size to make a journaling card. It's a great size if you wanted to use this on a card front. It's such a good size, and it's just the right amount of grungy ledger. I love this stamp. So I'm going to be stamping this a lot, and I want to make sure that I get a good impression each time. So I'm using my repositioner tool. This is Stampin' Up's version, but I know there are multiples out on the market. The first one that I'm going to be using today is coffee dyed paper, and I'm stamping with VersaFine Clair in black. Right now, I'm going to do a couple of different inks and different things throughout this process. Just so I have a nice variety for the journals that I'm creating, and to kind of build up my stash so that when I want to need something, a journaling card or whatever, I can just have that. So making sure to rub that so I have a really good impression. And then I have this page. This is actually from a vintage book, and it's got a couple of images on here. So the one down at the bottom, there's like a guy, and he's kind of like holding up the map. I didn't really necessarily want to use him, so I'm going to stamp this right here. I will actually put some coffee dyed paper on the back of this and turn this into a journaling card, but I really wanted to stamp it again where that map part is. That way I have that cool map on the back. So I'm going to just trim this off so that I can get to the image here, you can see, and then because I think that's going to be so cool on the back. So I'm just trimming this down so I can get kind of to the section where I want, putting it back in my positioner, and then I'm going to ink this back up again with this VersaFine Clair in black. And there's going to be a lot of different types of paper and things that I used. I just wanted to kind of see how it would all work with this particular stamp. So you can kind of see how the back of that looks after I've trimmed that out. So I also wanted to use some vintage Atlas, and this actually comes from my paper packs that I have on my website, and I really liked the blue. I was really trying to stay like kind of in the water on this page, and I love how this one turned out because you get just a little bit of the compass in the bottom. I love that one. This is just some printable paper. I stamped that a couple different times. The paper that I'm using here is actually the paper that when they run it through a machine to do braille on it, this is the paper that they use. A friend of mine gave me this paper, and I love it because it's got a really great texture. So I'm actually going to stamp this in a few different ways, a few different colors, and also because it's a really nice big sheet. And on this one, I wanted to kind of see what would happen if I could get a second generation stamp with this VersaFine Clair, and I actually love how that second generation stamp looked. This is pattern paper from my stash. I have like this kind of scripty section. I just put this right over the top of that just to give a little bit of interest right in the background. Again, another piece of pattern paper here. This is a thinner one. You can see I've already stamped one time up there at the top. I'm going to just go in again. This time I am using Distress in, I believe this one is ground espresso that I'm stamping right there. Yes, so like I said, I did some in hickory smoke, and I also did some in ground espresso, depending on kind of what paper I was working with. So this paper, again, because it's kind of more muted, I'm going to go in with some ground espresso here as well. Love how that one turned out as well. And I'll show you a flip through of these, here in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and do another map page, another one of the printables, and this is kind of where we're at with all these. So I'm going to go ahead and round the corners. I just think that makes it look a little bit more finished in terms of being a journaling card. And you can kind of see how these are shaping up. And again, some of these I'm going to decorate on camera today, and then others are just going to go in my stash. But one idea too is to just add a little bit of a fabric up at the top is kind of like a little pull tab. That's what I'm going to do here. I actually just stapled this down with my Tim Holtz tiny attacher. I really like using that tool for this. And that way you just have something to kind of pull on when you're pulling it in and out of a pocket. So this first page that I'm dealing with right here is actually one of the coffee dyed papers. And this is the Leaf Branch Stencil. This is also from Creative Worship Stamps. And I'm going to be using Bundled Sage Distress Oxide and just going right through this. I really want to just kind of experiment and see what kind of effects I could get with different things on these journaling cards with this vintage stamp on it. I love how this one turned out. Just really subtle background. You could still write over the top of this if you really wanted to. I did miss a spot there, so I'm fixing that. Love how that one turned out. This one is using the stamp set called Poppy Fields, again from Creative Worship Stamps. And this is one that I stamped, I think this was the second generation stamp that you saw me do on that white paper. I want to just kind of protect my mat underneath there, so I added a little piece of paper underneath. And because this was a huge stamp, I knew I would mess that up if I didn't. So just stamping this, not the whole image, just kind of that one side of it over on the left side of the journaling card. And then I'm going in with my clear embossing powder. So I'm using my VersaFine ink here so that it stays wet long enough for me to be able to add my embossing powder. You can see I'm just heating that up. You can kind of tell when it melts how it just really brings everything out. And I'm doing this because in a few minutes I'm going to color that. But for right now, when I'm kind of doing mask making like this, I want to kind of go through all the steps first. So I did the stamping. Now I'm going to come through with some focal images. This one is called Butterfly Bliss. This was, I believe, from the May release, also Creative Worship Stamps. And just kind of did this one off center, which is a little bit too big for the page, but I kind of like that he's hanging off a little bit. Same exact thing. I am going to emboss that with some clear embossing powder. And then this is another stencil. This one is called Leaf Fronds stencil. This is also Creative Worship Stamps. And I'm coming in actually with my embossing stamp pad and just kind of pressing that right through the stencil, making sure I got all of that, really good coverage. And then I'm going to pull this out and I'm actually going to put some bundled sage embossing glaze over the top of this. I like the glaze because it's transparent. And so it's going to kind of pull in some of that coffee dyed paper that's underneath there. And then just kind of put everything back into the jar, and then I'll heat that up, and you can kind of see it almost changes color, and I really like how this looks. And then when I'm ready to use this card, I can just add a sentiment or another piece over the top, or I can really just use it just like it is. It may go into one of the botanical journals I'm working on, just because I really, really love it. I love those leaf fronds. So fun. And then this last stamp is probably my favorite from the June release. This is from Peaceful Botanicals. I'm obsessed with this stamp. I have used it. I used it on my Plan With Me. If you saw that video, I love this stamp. There's just something about it. It's just like the perfect size and everything. So I am going to stamp this as well. I'm using the vintage ledger one here is actually stamped in brown, but I'm still going to go in with my black, and I'm still going to do the same process of doing some clear embossing over the top of that. And the reason for that is when I color these, I'm actually going to do some watercoloring. And so I really like to have those images embossed when I do the watercoloring into the stamped images. It just kind of helps the paint kind of go where you want it and keep everything, sort of in line. Just kind of is an easy way to do that. So I am using my Kiritaki Gansai Tambi whatever watercolors. I really like these because of how saturated the colors are. And I started this with just one of the greens. I went in adding it to a few different places on each of the leaves, and then I'm going to pull in another green and kind of get them a brighter sort of green. And then I'm going to get them to mix a little bit. In hindsight, I wish I had wet my paper first, so that these colors would have an easier job mixing. They mix okay, but when you work wet on wet, they just blend a little bit easier. But I was still able to get it to work here. And then I did actually come back in with just a little bit of yellow in some places too, just to kind of brighten everything up. But I really love how these greens work with that ground espresso of the brown ledger. I just really like how that looks. So you can kind of see I'm coming back in just here and there, adding a little color. I'm going to come now in with that yellow just to kind of brighten up a few areas. I think it's probably hard to see on camera, but that's kind of what I'm doing. And then I'll show a close-up of this at the end too, where it's completely decorated as well. But again, just kind of letting the colors do what they're going to do. I'm not worried about any kind of particular shading or anything like that. I did add some splatters to the background just to try to kind of pull everything together. And I'm going to do the same thing with this butterfly. I'm starting out with a really bright yellow right in the middle, but on this one, I actually did wet the paper first. It just helps. And then I went to another kind of yellow orangey color, and then I'll do kind of an orangey red on the tips of this. I did get a little wild there for a second, so I just had to mop that up with a paper towel, but you'll see me coming in with some other colors, and then I'm just kind of trying to blend everything together. It actually blends a lot easier with this paper being wet, and this is kind of a really orangey red, so I did add some of that yellow that I had just used in the butterfly, and then I added a little bit of water just to kind of thin it down. I'm just going to put this right at the edges of my butterfly. But this is one of the things that I like about having these images embossed first, is that you can kind of just drop the color almost in those little sections, and it's going to stay and like puddle and pool kind of where you want it to. And so it just makes for a quick way to watercolor and kind of get the dimension that you're looking for. I did add a little bit of that red kind of in the middle of the body of the butterfly, and just you can kind of see just back and forth with my brush and blending everything. And now I'm going to work on making a really dark green color for the little section of his body. And I, again, adding a little bit of those kind of orangey splatters to the background just to kind of pull everything together. I'm going to set that off to the side. And now with these poppies, I'm going to go straight in with that beautiful red color. And I do kind of start darker in the middle. I was trying to do a little bit more shading than I think actually showed up. You can kind of see I'm leaving some spaces white so that when I blend this out, I have a natural difference between the colors. So I'm coming in kind of laying down a heavy layer of the paint, and then I will just add some water and then kind of pull from the color that's already there, if that makes sense. You can't see the water, but it's over onto the right. Excuse me. And then I'm just going to go through and blend. And again, this is great because everything's going to stay kind of in the image because of the embossing. And I actually came in with a water brush just so that I could kind of control where the water was going just a little bit more. And again, mostly just to help kind of give the illusion that I actually shaded this, but I'm not a watercolorist. I just like playing with all of the things. And so I have not used my paints in forever, and this felt like a good day to pull them back out. So I'm going to go over the stems really carefully with this green, actually the same green that I used on the body of that butterfly a minute ago, and just kind of color in my stems and my leaves. And that will kind of, and I did add just a little bit of to the bottom of these, and then I'm going to come in with a really bright yellow and right into the center of that. I'm just going to kind of drop that paint right in there, and I'm going to sort of just let it blend around. I'm going to use a little bit of water, and I'm just going to let it do its thing. And then I wanted to work on the background. So you can see I have that really light gray background. And so I'm coming in with this kind of sky cloudy blue color, and I'm adding the most like concentrated section of this right next to the flower. And then I'm going to fade this out with water. So I'm actually switching to my water brush here so that I have more control over this. I just like kind of having it almost fade out to the white background, and it just, in my mind anyway, helps just really draw your eye into the image that you're watercoloring. So you don't have to color necessarily the whole background. You can kind of see how I just left it here. It just kind of fades out over to the right. So this is what that looks like. I used some of the script alpha for that word hope there. And so then I have all of these journaling cards just ready to go. They're going to go in my stash. Again, that's the embossed one. This is that pattern paper with a little label, and then, or not label, the fabric at the top. And then these are the other ones that I've done. And again, these are ones that I will just kind of put in my stash. You can see the difference between the brown and the black on there. I really love how that one looked as well. And so this is the beautiful map. I love that one. I love all things map. So I like both how those turned out. This is the pattern paper. And a lot of these I did add coffee dyed paper to the back of them to give them a little bit more strength and stability. And so they can be written on either front or back when these go into journaling cards or into journals. And then that's it for me. So here's some close-ups. If you like this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. All my links, including my affiliate link for Creative Worship Stamps, are down in the description. And until next time, bye.